Hey, sports fans, grab your clubs and join the action at the Hockey Day Minnesota Golf Classic powered by PNC Bank. It happens August 12th at the Classic at Madden's Resort in Brainerd. Enjoy 18 holes of golf on one of Minnesota's premier courses, plus a cookout dinner to cap off the big day. You'll also have the chance to meet and mingle with special guests from the Gopher men's and women's hockey teams. Don't miss this great day of golf, hockey, and Minnesota fun. Gather your foursome and register now at hockeydaymn.com. That's hockeydaymn.com. We'll see you at the course.
Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Anthony, fresh off a charity golf tournament out in Shakopee. How was that, Anthony?
Well, it was great. It wasn't really a charity event. It was just a tournament in Shakopee. Okay. First time I'd ever played the Meadows at Mystic Lake, I think their course is called. It was fun. I got to play with my old friend Tim Laudner today, who I haven't spent as much time with this summer as in past summers. But we must have played well enough because I won $12. So it was a very lucrative day for me on the golf course.
Nice. Was he
I didn't really
a cigar?
understand how the game was going. It felt like we were losing, and then all of a sudden at the end, the guy handed me $12.
Okay. Maybe you were doing some funky stuff on your scorecard.
Well, I wasn't the scorer. He was. I don't know. We had a couple different games going, and apparently we did well in a couple of the games.
Yep. Was he smoking a cigar?
He doesn't smoke them. He just chews on them. And same as when we were working pre- and post-game shows together, he pulls one out of a case and gnaws on it for the 9 innings, but never lights it up. And so, yes, he was walking around the course, gnawing on the cigar. Just, there's only one Tim Laudner, and for people who have had a chance to meet him know what I'm talking about. We call him the Reverend. It was one of the early nicknames in the pre- and post-game days because when he first started out, so I think his first season was like 06, 07, so he's probably 19, 20 years into this. And when he first started, I had started maybe 4 or 5 years earlier than that. And we had a rotation of guys. Roy Smalley, Ron Coomer were kind of the two main guys, and Lauds only worked on Sundays. So I started calling him the Reverend because he only worked the Sunday game, the Sunday Twins games. Saturday games, we didn't do pre and post, and the other guys worked Monday through Friday. So I started calling him the Reverend, and it just kind of stuck. And when the Reverend preaches, everybody else just listens. And there's a lot to learn from him when you're on the golf course. But we had a lot of fun today. It was great. Perfect day to be on the course. And the course I was pleasantly surprised. The greens were above average, I'd say, and the rest of the course was nice. Great setting down there, and just it was a spectacular day. One of the days where and Lods and I were talking actually as we were walking off the course, that if you can't enjoy days like this, and no matter where you're playing, and just say how lucky are we to be, walking off a golf course in the middle of the afternoon on a Wednesday, and we're fortunate. It was a lot of fun.
And how was Chris Stapleton?
Chris Stapleton was great, and almost in the same area. We were down there at the amphitheater, and the concert itself was terrific, and the venue was great. The sound was awesome. I realized I was a bigger Chris Stapleton fan than I thought I was going into it. As I think is a lot of times the case, you go in and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I didn't even realize that was his song. And I knew a few obviously, but he was really good and put on a great show. The only thing I didn't like about it was the bottleneck getting out after the show. It was disastrous. And even once out of the parking lot, it took us like 20 minutes to get to the freeway. Then once we got on the freeway, there was an accident on the side of the road, so that was backed up. That part was disastrous. I have since talked to a couple other people who had been to other shows there, and they said it wasn't quite as bad. So maybe we just got unlucky on a bad night. But what was weird about it was as we were driving out, there were like 2 or 3 different spots where a road was closed and they just had a random police officer sitting there, like with a road that was already blocked off by one of the orange and white signs or cones. And I kept thinking, out of all the traffic jams that are going on around here, where having somebody directing traffic there in a police outfit would have been great. Instead, they just have them sitting by these roads that are already closed anyway, that nobody can drive down because they're blocked off. So they had a little, perhaps, doubling up on some spots where they didn't need law enforcement. But the actual show was really good, and the venue is terrific. It's fun being outside, having a place like that here locally where they can put on shows like that. I think we're almost 20,000 people there that night.
Yeah. And I think they're building they're going to build an amphitheater right on the river in Minneapolis as well. How far is it from the casino? Is it right next to it?
Yeah, pretty close. It's right next to the racetrack, so it's actually closer to the track than it is to the casino. But
so
close.
it's basically Canterbury then.
Right. Yeah. We walked around the track to get to the venue from where we parked because we had stopped to eat down there.
Well, there's the easy way to avoid traffic. You just go to the casino after the concert.
You could.
For about an hour.
They had shuttles running back and forth there too, and we certainly could have done that. What I was a little disappointed in is, and I'm going to forget the name of the place. It was Boardwalk, I think. We went to right there and to eat before the show. And if they had just stayed open after the show, we could have stopped and had a cocktail and killed some time. But they were closed already by that time. But what was the interesting part of the show there? It was the second time in 4 days that I had run into Sammy Walker.
Really?
Yeah, I ran into him the previous weekend I think when we talked about my camp weekend at my buddy's cabin up on Big Sandy. We had gone to this fundraiser, and I ran into Sammy Walker there. And then 4 days later, we're at the Stapleton concert, and I ran into him again. He was actually there with some of the Wild players and former Wild players. Brock Faber I saw down there, and Mason Shaw was there that night. Connor Dewar, all those guys were down there together to go to the show. But 2 times in 4 days running into Sammy Walker, that was the highlight of my summer.
That's funny. Yeah, I saw Mason just got married. A bunch of Wild players were there, and Jake Middleton, former Wild player. Somebody was telling me that these small area games that the Wild players are already doing down at Tree every day have been ridiculous, especially Boldy and Faber just going up against each other one-on-one. Not a shock that those two, they're just special players, special competitors. I just got back from Milwaukee. Actually, I went to the Of Monsters and Men concert, so that was a blast. Let me see what Margot wants. Oh, what a picture! This is definitely this picture is definitely going to be our picture that's going to go on the tweet.
What's the picture?
It's a picture of you doing the podcast with Stanley and Phil, perfectly posed.
Oh, really?
So, yeah,
they must have left. They decided they got bored with the show already because they took off.
That's a great picture. I just went to the Monsters and Men show out in Milwaukee. That was a blast, and got back today and heading out again tomorrow. Seeing 3 concerts in 3 nights out in Colorado, and then heading to another little jaunt. Seeing Trampled 2 times in a row at Dillon Amphitheater, so that should be a blast.
Nice.
Unbelievable.
Is that this weekend?
Yeah, that's Friday, Saturday. Yeah, and it's gonna be a blast.
That's too bad you'll miss AJ in Denver, because AJ I think is coming home, so we can go up to a cabin over in Minong, Wisconsin for the weekend.
Oh, nice. But this theater that they're playing in Colorado is going to be awesome. And the night before, I'm actually going to Red Rocks on Thursday night for a concert. So we're both talk about the dog days of the off season. We're both in a full vacation mode.
Well, it actually was this week that I was talking to some friends, and I said, this was kind of the first week where I literally had nothing going on. Nothing. Hey, I knew we had a podcast, but we weren't traveling, we weren't doing anything. So starting last weekend, I had 2 weekend days in a row. Both my girls were gone. They were busy, so they weren't around at all. And it was like 3 or 4 days in a row where I woke up in the morning and I was like, I literally have nothing to do today. And so, I mean, I found a few things to get done around the house, but I said, this is probably an indication that, okay, it's okay. It would be good now to go back to work.
Yeah.
And I've had a chance to play a lot of golf, which that's been great. And we are going up to this cabin this weekend. But this was the first stretch where, with some of our travel and, at least paying some attention to what's been happening with the Wild in the off season, I've been busy up until this point, weddings and things like that, golf tournaments. But now I had nothing on my calendar. So
Yeah,
it's a strange feeling.
I feel like last summer, was equally as dead for a large part of it. We were just after Nico Stern. We were just sort of waiting for Carell to sign, and obviously that took right until the eve of the season, so to speak. And this one, it feels similar. I mean, obviously they've gone after Larkin. They hope to still get Larkin once Detroit hires a general manager. But obviously Quinn hasn't signed yet, but there just has been nothing, and they definitely feels like they're in this standstill until they get some sort of clarity on if they can get a Larkin done. I think that's one reason. I think that's something that's also, Quinn's keeping an eye on. Quinn has inside intel here to Dylan. Obviously, they're buddies. He knows that Dylan wants to play for Minnesota, and I think that he wants to see if the Wild can get this done as well.
Well, he might have inside intel, and he'd have more inside intel than I have, and probably than you have with this. But I was going to ask you about that this week because, as has been the case all summer, you and I both get asked about this just about every time you're around Wild fans of any kind. And I got asked it again today at the golf course, that is it going to get done? Is it going to get done? And as I was driving home, and I had about an hour and 10 minutes of alone time in my car on the way home from down in the Shakopee area, and I started to think about, well, what could be now, this is all hypothetical, but what could be the reason? What could be the holdup? Because I think you and I both thought that this Quinn Hughes deal would be done for sure by now. And I thought it would be done potentially even within hours or days of the July 1 opportunity, the window opening. And so I just started to think, well, is it possible that he's waiting to help the Wild, to say, I don't want to lock you into a number with me if it's going to hamstring a trade? Is it possible that he's waiting to see if there's a trade before he decides that I want to commit to 3, 4, 5 or more years to this franchise? Is it possible that he's saying that he's asking for more money than what we thought he would be asking for, where we were kind of guessing that it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of Kirill Kaprizov's contract? Is it possible that I don't know what it might be, but you have to wonder, there has to be a reason why the deal hasn't yet been done at this point.
Yeah, it could be anything from term. It could be structure. It could be what we were talking about last week. I mean, look, you saw the Celebrini deal that was also done by Pat Brisson, and Pat's going to want a lot of signing bonuses into it, and that's a huge amount of fiscal, commitment by Craig Leopold if you're going to be writing $36 million worth of checks every July 1 for the foreseeable future. I mean, there could be myriad reasons. He could be asking, maybe he wants to be the first $20 million player. I mean,
right, that's kind of what I'm asking, because I think
Yeah.
if it was the basic term or structure, that's something, I don't think that would have held it up to this point.
Yeah.
I think it might be the AAV. I don't know, and this is all speculation. I've almost on purpose not asked anybody that might know anything questions this summer, partially just because I knew they probably wouldn't tell you anything anyway, but I didn't want to badger anybody, but I have to wonder if that's a possibility. And it, like I said, but it might well be that him waiting is done at least a little bit to try to help the organization maintain some flexibility in how to get a deal done, where, then you say, okay, if it took this to get the deal done and now it means the number, it fits better at this number as opposed to that number, that he might be willing to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it'd be completely conjecture at this point to figure it out. I will say, I didn't think it was going to be done immediately. I know that a lot of people are putting words in my mouth. The only thing I said is that I think it's going to get done. No, I mean, if anything, we could not have made it clearer that the contract was not going to be done July 1, because we had talked that they hadn't even gotten down to the nitty gritty down around July 1, that they were waiting to meet at the end of the the month. Back in early June, both Billy Guerin and Quinn Hughes just so happened to be in Jersey. They met there. Quinn, continued his talk that he wanted to resign here, and I think that was again conveyed to them last week when they met, in Detroit. So we'll see where it goes. Again, this is something that there's no rush to get it done, and I think that's part of it here is that they're in a negotiation. The one thing I will say is, a lot of people are trying to portray Bill Guerin as not being as confident anymore that he's going to get done because he's not willing to talk about this stuff on the record. I mean, the one thing I will say that Bill has made clear to me from the very, very beginning is that he felt last year during the Kirill Kaprizov negotiations, there was way too much public talk. It became a fight between him and Paul Theophanis. It got out that he turned down the $16 million. It did not help the process when Craig Leopold told Joe Smith that they were willing to pay him absolutely anything. It didn't help the process a year before when Craig Leopold said to all of us reporters that nobody was going to be able to pay him more. And I think that it probably didn't help the process when Craig went on the record, to I think it was Minnesota Public Radio earlier this month or last month that they were confident that they were going to re-sign Quinn and what the term of the contract could be, that he wants 3 years and the Wild would like 5 or more. So I think that Bill Guerin is just trying to be respectful of the process and it just is not willing to talk about this stuff on the record during interviews and podcasts and to reporters and things like that. So I don't take anything I don't take any like any sort of lack of confidence anymore just because he will not talk about this. This is just something that he will not talk about.
Yeah, and I think Billy from day one he doesn't accidentally say more than he wants to say. He's a pretty calculated guy. If he doesn't want the details of something to get out, they don't get out. And I share your thought on that nothing that has been said recently would change my confidence level for whatever that's worth that a deal gets done between the two sides. But I am surprised that it's gone this far. I really thought it would be, maybe not July 1, but I thought it would be pretty early July that they would have come to an agreement. Now, I also thought there was a likelihood that another trade would have been made by about then. And as we've talked before, I think one of the things that's really made this tough for the Wild is we've talked so often about plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, to try to keep multiple plans still in the realm of possibility is not easy, because without having that deal done, but still hoping that you can get a deal done, and yet having a roster that's ready if you don't get a deal done is not easy.
Yeah.
You've heard me talk about the Onyx Hunt app on here for years. Well, make sure you download the Onyx Fish app as well, because before you even pull the boat out of the garage, you can sort lakes by species, trophy potential, and keeper potential, so you're not just guessing and you're going out with a plan. You could also use the Onyx Fish app to filter walleye, bass, panfish, whatever you're chasing, and see species abundance and size data so you actually know what's in the lake before you launch. Everything you need to get there and get on fish is all in one app. Boat ramps, lake access points, public versus private land, points of interest like bait shops and camping. It's all built into the app. No more scrambling around 3 different apps or outdated reports. Onyx Fish gives you the proven fishing area data and local insights that used to take years to learn. So you could do a decade of knowledge all in about 10 minutes. So download Onyx Fish on the App Store or visit onyxmaps.com/fish. Spring fishing is here. Go find a lake you've been driving past for years and finally find out if it's worth the launch.
If you've got kids, you know that back to school season is a lot. Supply list, shoe shopping, juggling all the schedules. It's not exactly a magical time of year. The Great Clips app, though, that really does work like magic. With just a few taps, you can find a salon nearby, see the wait time, and check in when it works for you. You can even get a message when it's your turn so you know when to pack up the kids and head over. And oh, the savings. That's where the real magic happens. So when it's time for back-to-school haircuts, download the Great Clips app, It may not take care of all your back-to-school to-dos, but it'll definitely make some of that stress disappear. Great clips. It's going to be great.
Let's talk about the roster. In fact, I did a story with Joe last week, or earlier this week. Can't remember. What day is today? Must have been last week.
Wednesday.
About the roster potential lines, what they're going to start camp with. Had some intel obviously when we wrote that story as well. This wasn't just throwing darts at the board. And the one thing that I think that they are going to start with at camp, Anthony, is a Kirill Kaprizov line with probably Ryan Hartman and Maxim Shabanov. Now, obviously, there's 6 weeks till camp starts on September 16th on the ice for the first time, September 17th. So a lot can change. But right now, Shabanov's going to get a really good look there. Bobby Brink could get a really good look there. Danilo Yurov could get a really good look there. The one thing that I think is pretty obvious that is unless Danilo Yurov comes into camp and is so appreciably better in the faceoff circle, he's probably going to be playing with another center on that line that could take draws. So if Yurov was on a line, it could be with Ryan Hartman. It could be with the Blake Coleman who could take draws. But right now, it certainly seems like it'll be a Kirill Kaprizov, Ryan Hartman, Maxim Shabanov first line, and Blake Coleman, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Matt Boldy second line to start camp.
Yeah, and I think if I had to guess, I mean, Shabanov might get the first look. He won't get the only look as a right winger on that line. But if he takes it and runs with it, as we've talked about so many times, when you get that opportunity and you're in the spot of Shabanov or Brink or Yurov or Stramel or Haight or any of these guys, when you get that look, you have to take advantage of it, and he'll have the first crack. And if he takes it and runs with it, maybe that becomes a done deal, at least to start the season. The Coleman pairing with Eriksson Ek and Boldy, I think we both thought was somewhat, I would say obvious, but somewhat of an obvious fit to take the spot of Marcus Johansson, a guy that's a responsible player that brings some speed, has the ability to score. That seemed like a no-brainer logical fit. And as far as Yurov goes, I think you're probably right. I think it depends on how the bottom six winds up getting built, because, I think there's a part of John Hines that would love to see the two Folignos play with, say, a Nico Sturm or something on a fourth line, but they got to be intrigued by the thought of McCarron with those two guys and get a big, strong physical line. That leaves Yurov to play with somebody like Sturm and maybe Brink and on a differently constructed bottom six line. So I think there's still a lot of moving parts there. And of course, this all is going off of the assumption that there isn't another significant trade made for Minnesota, because I think if another trade is made, all of this gets thrown out. And obviously I didn't mention Yakov Trenyan in this. He's going to fit in there somewhere in those bottom six spots. And maybe it becomes a Nick Foligno that plays with Yurov on the same line, where now you got a couple of face-off options, which allows you to play McCarron with Foligno and Trenyan, and you get a big, strong physical line that way.
I like the thought of it like a Yurov, McCarron, and then you can have the right wing either being Brink or Shabanov, who doesn't sort of make the first line. And then same thing, Yurov doesn't have to take draws. I think that McCarron's probably going to get your first shot at the third line center just because of the type of contract. I mean, the guy signed a 6-year deal this offseason that usually doesn't scream somebody that's going to be a 4-year, a fourth line guy. And then if you had a fourth line, you could have Trenyan there with the Foligno brothers or Nico Sturm, being in there every now and then. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting where Yurov is. Again, look, there are 13 one-way forwards signed to contracts. So if Hunter Haight and Charlie Stramel are going to make the team, they're going to have to knock the Wild Sox off right from the start of camp. There will be a rookie camp. It's not a tournament, but there'll be a rookie prospect camp for 3 days before camp starts. So that's their sort of the beginning of their chance of having to make the team. And then we'll see how they do in camp. But with 4 exhibition games, as opposed to 6, Anthony, I think it's going to be, pretty difficult. And the fact that they have, 13 one-way contracts on the team. So we'll see where it goes. On the blue line, I don't think there's a lot that we're gonna have to figure out there, right? I mean, you got Faber and Hughes, you got Brodeen and Spurgeon, and then you got Oli Mata and Zach Bogosian and/or Damon Hunt. Hunt will get playing time this year because there are going to be injuries. We know that. I mean, Brodeen's been hurt, Bogosian's been hurt, so we know that Hunt's going to play even if he doesn't play opening night. And then obviously we're going to have a Jesper Wallstedt and Calvin Pickard tandem to start the season until Philip Gustafson is ready to come back.
Yeah, I don't think there really was likely to be any surprises with the decor. The only question, I guess, would be Damon Hunt and how much will we see him? Will it be some kind of a rotation, or will it just be injuries that would get him the opportunity? And we've talked about the goaltending situation at length, where it's going to be Jesper Wallstedt at the beginning as much as he can carry the load until Gus gets back. But once Gus gets back, I'll be interested to see how that plays out, because remember, at what point last season did we really start to think there's a legitimate chance it's going to be Wallstedt, not Gustafson, in game one of the playoffs? It wasn't until probably February or March. So, I mean, for most of the season, the assumption was Gus was going to be the number one into the playoffs. So I don't think it should come as a surprise to fans if at some point this season, let's say December, January, whatever, if Gus comes back and reclaims the reins and takes over the net, at least for a part of the season, if not the rest of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Okay, let's go to X questions and we'll wrap up the show, Anthony. Christopher Cash goes, what's the purpose behind adding 2 more games to a regular season that is already arguably the most taxing season in pro sports? I mean, obviously, you're taking away 2 exhibition games, so it's about money. It's about also allowing fans to actually pay for regular season games, as opposed to paying the same prices to watch meaningless exhibition games. It's about money, right, Anthony?
Well, it is. It's revenue, and it does. It also balances out the schedule. Now everybody plays the exact same schedule in every division. That was a nice part of it. They also loosened up the schedule, so it starts a little earlier. You don't have as many back-to-backs, as many 4 and 6 kind of games. So I think there's a lot of things about this year's schedule that make more sense than in previous years. But
remember, though, that largely has to do, the lack of condensed schedule has to do with the fact that they're not shut down in February. Like next year, I'll be interested to see how they cram 84 games in next year, Anthony, when we have a World Cup and then, in 3 years' time, another Olympics. And
yeah, well, I think they're setting the stage for that right now with the slightly earlier start to the season. And I'd expect we maybe see that even another week or something next year, where maybe then it's September 25th instead of October 1st that you open it up. Really, that's all it would take, is a week. If you loosen it by a week, the condensed nature of the schedule gets much more manageable, and it's easier on the players. We saw injuries up all over the league last year, and the condensed schedule was no small part of that.
Cody Defoe asks if the new Red Wings GM comes in and offers that he's willing to consider a trade centered around Larkin for Eriksson Ek, does Guerin entertain the idea at all? I can't see it, Anthony, because that just would mean that you need another top 6 center again. I mean, it just doesn't. It would be a never-ending cycle. I can't see Eriksson Ek being part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only thing that again, this is all conjecture, and we talked about this on previous shows. A new GM coming in might have a little more rope, so to speak, with the ability to make a trade that sets back their rebuilding process a year, that's a little bit more futures driven. He might, both within the organization, but also with the fan base, where a guy might be able to come in and say, hey, I got to just reset this a little bit. I'm not talking about that we're going to go another 8 years or 10 years outside the playoffs, but I just need to take a mild step back and make this work, where I think it would have been really tough for Steve Yzerman to make that same statement and make a deal that was futures driven. So once that GM's in place, I think there is at least that chance that that the Wild's offer becomes a little bit more palatable for Detroit than what it is right now.
Nathaniel asked, what's yours and Anthony's favorite podcast apart from Worst Seats in the House? I only listen to two, Anthony. I listen to Elliot Friedman's 32 Thoughts with Kyle Bukowskis, and that's the only hockey one I really listen to on an every week basis. The only other one I listen to every week is the Smartless podcast with Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Hayes. It's just a hilarious podcast. Gives you a lot of inside baseball into the movie and music industry. Very funny. They're really good friends. Great camaraderie. It's one I listen to every week. Never miss it.
Yeah, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a podcast called The Sweet Spot that's golf-centric, that has a couple of guys on there. One who wrote a book about managing the expectations and finding enjoyment in golf, and then his co-host is a technical swing instructor from England, and they have a good dynamic. I like listening to that. I've picked up a few things that I've carried over into my game. And I actually listened to it was almost more like a documentary, I would say, themed podcast that was on the mafia that was really good, really well done, where they went through, there were episodes on a lot of the kind of the main characters in American mafia history. And I'm always fascinated by that, by the life and the world of organized crime in the United States. And it was really well done, where they interviewed police officers, government people. They interviewed some former mob members who had, now since gotten out of the business, so out of the family business. But I mean, there was an episode on like Donnie Brasco. There was an episode on Lucky Luciano, an episode on Al Capone. And it's really a great, if you're into that, it's just called Mafia. But I listened to most of that series, and that was really good. I don't listen to a lot of other podcasts, and I really only started listening to them when I'm out walking my dogs late at night.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Russo for Aquarius Home Services. Summer is for backyard barbecues, weekends at the lake, and apparently finding out if your air conditioner is going on a permanent vacation. If yours is blowing warm air, making strange noises, or running so much you're tempted to hand it a sports drink, it's time to call Aquarius. Whether it's a repair to get things back on track or it's time to trade in for a new cooling system, Aquarius has you covered. And here's the really cool part. They've extended their summer sale through August, giving you even more time to save. Enjoy $98 off any repair, and if you need to upgrade your cooling system, get an additional $500 off on top of their summer sale pricing. That means dependable, energy-efficient comfort and peace of mind for the rest of summer and for many summers to come. Schedule your appointment today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended, and don't forget to tell them Russo sent you.
Switching is easy. We do it all the time. We could switch on the lights. We switch TV channels. Some of us even switch our favorite sports teams. Well, that's a stretch. But what's not a stretch is how you could switch and save with Tony Hoagland State Farm. In fact, State Farm agent Tony Hoagland and his team can switch you over so you can start saving today. If you thought your last homeowner's insurance renewal was really high, or it's been a while since you reviewed your coverages, Tony and his team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. With Tony and his team, it's easy to switch and save. You could reach out to Tony's office at 763-421-4900 to start saving today. Again, that's 763-421-4900.
Pine and Paddle asks, any new news on the Wild TV broadcasting, Anthony? Any intel you can share?
Not really yet. I think there are still some details to be worked out, but I believe it's going to end up being easier for fans to find Wild games and stream them or watch them on either a linear or over-the-air option. I think they'll find the games to be just as or more accessible than they've been in the past. And I think some of the behind-the-scenes people are starting to get locked in. Hopefully, there isn't some major change there, because we had a crew that was right up there with among the league's best. So I think we'll see it'll feel and look largely the same to what it's looked in the past.
Yeah, the only thing that I have definitely learned is what we got a question last week about it is if you are out of market, you will continue to subscribe to ESPN Plus. You can't out of market get the Wild app, according to somebody with the Wild. Emma asks, any word on how Gus is doing post-op? I talked to actually somebody the other day close to Gus and said that he's doing great and is ahead of schedule. So we'll see. Jordan asks if I've been to Lake Dillon yet. It's got to be my all-time favorite music music venue, absolutely unreal up there in the mountains. I have not been there. I can't wait going there this weekend. Add your name. Minnesota Hockey Dad goes, how do you stay sane during such a snooze fest for a summer for the Wild, Anthony? He says he's feeling pretty negative about the upcoming season.
Well, I'm not feeling negative about it, but it's easy for me to stay sane. I have a high sanity level anyway, as you well know. I spend a lot of time on the golf course during the summer, and I really, and this isn't to mean that I don't take my job seriously or anything, but I try not to think about it a lot, at least up until about now. And now it's time to start ramping up and digging into the roster, digging into the specifics of what some of the other teams have done, the other rosters makeup, all those kind of things, tweaking my game file, getting everything ready, because once the season starts, it's too late to really start to make adjustments. So I do, for about the next 6 weeks, I'll be spending a lot of time on perfecting so that you have everything ready to be updated on a nightly basis as you get into the grind of a season going every other night. But I don't, to stay sane during an off season like this, I don't have the stress that like a general manager or a coach has as they're trying to build a roster during the summer. I don't have to worry about it until September 23rd, I think, or 21st or something like that, when we're doing our first preseason game.
The gift guy guys, are you traveling back to Europe for the preseason interview if they are having them again? Actually, that's in Munich this year, third week of August. Unfortunately, I do have a conflict. Fortunately or unfortunately, I have a family conflict. So I'm going to be out of town for that, so I can't come do it. And he goes, and who is the player that you said was a jerk last year? Actually, it was 2 years ago in Prague. But I'll plead the fifth on that one. I don't want to say that out loud.
It wasn't somebody that scowled at you in an elevator somewhere, was it?
No. But
who was that guy? James Neal.
James Neal.
Yeah, that he scowled at you in an elevator and made you very nervous.
Yes, exactly. Aaron Zerfus, who I haven't heard from him from a while. As things stand right now, who are the 3 top teams in the Central next season, Anthony?
I think they're the same top 3. I think it's Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, and I think Utah has made some significant strides, and they'll be close. But I still think the same. I think the top 3 at this point are still the same. I think St. Louis will be better this year. I think Nashville will be better this year. So I think the gap from the top to the bottom, there isn't going to be the separation from the top 3 to the rest like we saw last year, where it was clear probably by Christmas time that the top 3 were the top 3 and everybody else was everybody else. I think the gap is a lot smaller.
Chris Burnt asks, who will be the Wild's e-bug be now that the rule has changed? If people don't know, it's going to be like a bullpen catcher. Every team will have a full-time e-bug that will travel next year, so there'll be no more of the, somebody coming down from the press box. The Wild actually have hired somebody. They start on September 1. That person, as far as I know, has not informed his employer yet that he's leaving, so I'm going to keep that between us. But it's going to be a dual role. He'll actually not only be the Wild's e-bug, but he's actually going to do something in the front office as well from an analytics analyst standpoint. So I'll have more information on that as we get closer. Scott asks, is there any way to get rid of the annoying logos superimposed just inside the blue lines during TV broadcasts, Anthony? I don't think Canadian broadcasts have them, he says. Is that true? I don't think that's true, is it?
I guess I don't know for sure which graphic he's talking about. Not on the boards, I assume, right?
No, the superimposed on the ice, I think he's saying.
Oh, yeah,
just inside the blue lines.
I think the Canadian broadcasts have the same thing.
Yeah,
I think
do too.
All the teams, all the broadcasts have the right to sell that. That's why this was an NHL-driven technology that allowed both broadcasts to sell all those advertisements, both there, on the boards, even the glass behind the goal. So I believe, I guess I'd have to go back to look to confirm, but to the best of, I don't remember seeing a show that didn't have it last year.
Yeah, and I would say that it's less likely now that so many teams are going to be, on the hook for producing their broadcasts.
And a cap that's going up.
Yeah, that they're going to start
every revenue stream needs to be exposed.
Exactly. Disappointed Minnesota sports fan. His at, by the way, Anthony, is miserable Minnesota. Is Tarasenko an option to be brought back, or is he still holding out for a payday? I think he is not an option to be brought back. I don't think it would be a bad idea. I think I know for a fact that he was asking for significant money, so I don't know if he's being priced out, if he's got something in the works. If he came down significantly, I think the guy does want to win. So would he come back to the Wild? Would the Wild consider him?
I think the only way I think we had somebody ask us this last week, and to me, the only way that they'd probably go back down that road would be if a trade was made that opened up, okay, now we need one more forward because we had traded 3 for 1 or 2 for 1 or something to make this deal. Then I could see them revisiting. Otherwise, I'd be a little bit surprised.
Jack Manning wants to know, what would you think about this decision? Give a full long leash look at Yurov with Kaprizov and another skilled winger. And for the sake of the argument, let's say Boldy on one hand, the Wild get to see if the 22-year-old can be that guy. On the other, you boost his value for a trade.
I don't think they'd put him there just to boost his value in a trade. I think that the only thing that would have me intrigued by it is that it would take the pressure off him on a face-off dot. He has shown to be a responsible player for certain. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have a guy with that kind of a role, but I don't know. I haven't seen enough in his game right now to say this is a guy ready to play the game at an offensive pace that can keep up with Kirill Kaprizov. Maybe a within game kind of thing where if, hey, we were playing with a lead, now we'll throw him on the wing with Kaprizov and Hartman to make that line a little more defensively responsible. I'm not sure. I kind of have a feeling the way the roster's set up right now that we might see more of these are the lines, but if the game is going this direction, this is the way the lines get shuffled in the third period. If the game is going the other direction where we're trying to protect a lead, this is how we shuffle the lines in the third period. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw more of that from John Hines this year.
Somebody asks if three-way trade Elias Pettersson going to Detroit and the Wild getting Larkin makes sense. I mean, it makes sense, but at least when Steve Yzerman was running the show, from my understanding, he was not somebody that was into Elias Pettersson. So I don't think that let's put it this way. It's not like Wild weren't thinking of this. Remember, his agent is CAA too. So, I think if it could have happened, it would have happened by now. We'll see how the next GM feels about Elias Pettersson.
It's a fit that makes some sense for all three teams because you've got now the Red Wings don't take a major step back. The Wild get what they're looking for, and the Canucks certainly are in the market for futures rather than currents.
Yeah, and the Canucks, then they can have Rossi, Ogren, Boyum, Yurov, Stramel, Haight. Just give them all, everybody to the Canucks, nobody else. Maybe the Wild can get Besser in the deal. Corey Rick Christensen says, is it an issue that anytime a big front office job has opened up recently that no Wild staff has been considered candidates? Well, I mean, Judd Brackett just became the AGM in Toronto. I don't think that's necessarily true. Maybe it just hasn't gotten out. I could tell you that, Chris Kelleher is extremely respected and is somebody that I think the teams would look as a GM. And then the other person is Matt Sells. I mean, we're hearing in Detroit right now that they want an analytic driven general manager. Well, Matt Sells is not only, started totally in analytics. He's the Wild's chief negotiator. And especially last year with Billy Guerin running USA Hockey, he has a lot more hands-on experience of day-to-day operations of running a team too. So, and was a big reason why the Wild went out and got Quinn. So I think Matt Sells is kind of a rising guy in the NHL. Anthony wants to know, the Wild got Tarasenko for future considerations. Have those considerations been determined yet? Future considerations literally means nothing. So there will be no, other than maybe, Steve Yzerman getting a drink from Bill Guerin one day. That means nothing. Anything else, Anthony?
Nope. I got nothing.
Nothing. August 18th. Do you know where you'll be that night? 7 p.m.?
August 18th, I will be at some place in the Twin Cities doing a podcast with Michael Russo.
Yes. Elsie, is this where you're going to be?
I'm in.
Yep. Tell Margot, Riel for Margot to put that on the calendar now.
I think she's listening from the other room. Phil just wandered by, so Phil will get it on the calendar for us.
All right, Anthony, awesome show. August 18th is our next live show at Elsie's. Anthony and I will be doing a podcast next week as well. Thanks to our incredible sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Onyx Map, State Farm with Tony Hoagland, by Tony Hoagland. Make sure you go to Tony Hoagland, and Great Clips. Thanks, everybody.
So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive.